Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend.
That I will support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
All right, so it's time for your networking call.
The main event.
Yeah, the main event. I mean, this is the most fruitful portion of the discovery funnel. I mean, this is where discovery occurs because you are gaining information, going back, processing it yourself, and saying, does that resonate? Does it not? Because the best insight is from someone who's in the shoes or living the potential future that you could. So here we are, right? Ring, phone call, it's going down. And so to set the stage, you're sitting in your prepared location with all your prepared gear. You've done your research on the person, and you have all the questions ready to go. And these are often set up on like a sheet of paper or a Google Sheet next to the camera so you can see both of them and be properly engaged. And so like, how does this go? And what should we be mindful of through this? And so one of the first places to start is that you can blow it all pretty quickly if you're not able to speak well.
Yeah.
Right. And now for those that might have speech impediments, there's certain ways that you're coping with that. And I'm sure that the listener that you're meeting with will be understanding.
Certainly.
Right. And have the empathy that you're moving with also. But it's critical that as you move into this, you present yourself in a way through speaking that you know what you're talking, you're prepared, and that you take time to listen and speak well inside of that conversation.
Yeah.
So a few things that I think about when it comes to these conversations and focusing on speaking well, start with slowing down the speed of the conversation. And as you do that, it helps to bring certainty, confidence to the way that you communicate. And so when people get nervous, you see them speak up faster, and then they go faster, and then the pitch of their voice gets higher, and they want to go fast, like, I don't know what's going on. And you sense that they're having a hard time with commanding the conversation and being in control with themselves. And so the pace in which you speak is an important aspect of demonstrating confidence and conveying that through the virtual domain on your computer and in a conversation. This is conversation, this is in interviews, and the pace is really important. Do you have anything you want to comment about that?
The biggest piece of advice that I give to new speakers, and a little bit more about my background, when I was in the Air Force, I was an instructor. I've taught over 4,000 hours in front of classes at this point in my life. The biggest piece of advice I gave to new instructors is if you think that you're talking too fast in your head, then you're talking really fast because you're nervous. And if you feel like you're talking really slowly, you're probably talking at just the right speed.
So try it out. And it could be, we'll get to you telling your story here, but film yourself.
Yes.
Set up your camera and film yourself talking about something. And you can begin to understand what is the right cadence of your speech pattern.
Or do this with somebody. That's practice.
Practice. Definitely
practice. That's what we did.
That's what we did. Yeah, we practiced a lot. And it was actually in your kitchen.
It was.
You practiced your elevator pitch.
It was.
Quite a bit. Another aspect of your speech is your tone. The tone can also be very high, right? You can talk up here in the top of your voice.
Very low.
Well, yeah, you can talk very low. You can turn your tone down, right? Chris Voss, who wrote a book called Never Split the Difference, he was a prior FBI hostage negotiator. I highly recommend the book.
Great book.
Talks about your late night radio show host voice. And this voice can be a very effective one in slowing down your speech, but then also conveying confidence. And so think about your speech patterns when you're communicating with these folks that you're presenting yourself to. The next one is eye contact, which is an interesting thing to think about and try to convey on Zoom. But as a recruiter, I have absolutely received feedback of it looked like they were busy. Okay, it looked like they were doing something else. And that can or can't be the case. What matters is the perception of the person you're having the conversation with. It's critical that you set up your situation, or even if you're in person, that your phone's on silent, perhaps even in a different room, right? Your computer notifications are turned off. You have moved the camera, right, the screen on which you're looking at, into a place that is relatively the same position as your camera, right? I've been on Zooms before where I sense that I can tell that my screen is, like my image is here and their camera is up here. And so they're looking at me and it looks like they're not looking at me, but they're looking at me, right? So making eye contact or giving off the perception of eye contact is critical when it comes to your virtual conversations.
And it really, really, you're just trying to look like you're paying attention, which you should be. And one piece of advice that I'll give you that I normally tell people right off the bat, because the way that I had it set up is I had my primary monitor with my camera. So I was looking at my camera and they were on that screen. But I also had notes off to the side, and that's where my questions were. That's where I was taking notes based off what they were saying. And so I would tell them right from the jump, hey, I've got notes on the screen. So if you hear me typing or it looks like I'm looking away from the camera, it's because I'm taking notes on the conversation. Is that okay? And if they said no, which no one ever did,
never occurred.
but it allowed them to say, oh yeah. And then if it looked like I was doing something else, because I was, they knew exactly what it was, and it looked like, and they could say, oh, he is giving me all of his attention. He's just taking notes on this conversation.
Yeah, not only is he giving me his attention, he cares so much about what I'm saying. He's taking notes on it. And I've also prepared. I'm communicating like, hey, I prepared for this. And for you, I'm respectful, which communicates I'm respectful of your time. I'll be taking notes. Is that all right? Okay, so that is an aspect of where your eyes are. Another thing is that you'll need to practice is not saying ums and yas and likes.
Filler words.
Right, and these filler words happen when you're trying to make space. And my advice to you is use the silence. And a way to do that also is, let's say they ask you a question. You could repeat the question back and say, to ensure that I heard your question properly, are you asking X, Y, and Z? And they'll say, most likely yes or no. And that's a great filler that's not like, and also demonstrates that you're listening really well. And so work on avoiding likes and slang. Slang and how you might speak with your buddies is not how you want to speak with whom you're looking to move into an organization with. But it can't, you know what? It could be, but you need to modify your speech patterns for this place that you're trying to gain association with.
Slowing down really does help with this, and do not be afraid of the verbal pause. Like Wayne said, the silence is important, and taking a quick second to pause and think of the next word, it's going to feel like a long time to you, but it's generally not perceived by the other person.
Yeah. Well, it can also be perceived as precise in your speech. So, the last one here that my recommendation, this is going to sound a little crazy, is I would recommend listening to some slam poetry, right? And so hear me out on this. It's a place where the entertainers or actors or theater folks and poets are using the tempo in their speech, the tone in their speech, the enunciation, and then also the energy, right? The highs and lows. They'll increase their volume and they'll bring it down. And this can help with your storytelling. So these are just different components to think about as you're preparing for conversations, your speech. How are you presenting yourself? The virtual, like what do you look like? Visual. And then now we're going into the audio space of it, and communicating with your language, with your posture is another aspect too. And so when it comes to posture, your camera angle is important, right? You probably know this on like taking selfies and which ones are flattering if you're looking down, looking up too much.
When you got people that are just...
Right. And so engaging in a conversation, you'll be sitting up and you want to present yourself that way. So this is the importance of speaking well, shows itself physically also. So as you think about these aspects, consider your speech when you engage with individuals. So we're thinking about our speech, and now the call's really started. All right, so
Yes,
here we
has.
are. Hey, Billy, how are you? Right, so we're going to have this initial greeting. Can you hear me okay? Like you might have to like fix your camera or anything, or not your camera, but like your audio and get it all squared away. But this introduction is a critical time for you to communicate your confidence and readiness for this conversation. And so, you'll have the small talk. You get a chance to demonstrate a bit more of your humanity and give some insight of, good morning, how are you? Right? That's usually the question that you can expect to happen, or you can say that to them and they'll say, I'm good. And they will respond with, how are you? This is a great opportunity for you to mention something unique about yourself. I'm great because, or like, sometimes I'll even say like, I was a little tired this morning because my son got up really late I got up in the middle of the night. And it's a way to communicate about, like having children or a family, or I was up early for this, or, I'm really excited because this afternoon we're going to go do Y. Take the moment in the introduction. Hello, how are you? Good. Boom. Use that as a way to create connection and something interesting about yourself to talk about, or interesting of them to tease out. This will go on for a little bit and you'll sense the conversation kind of moving of like, hey, are we moving this forward to the next thing? And so it's in that moment you just do the little bit of the connection. I recommend now to take command of that call and move into, hey, Billy, thank you for taking the time to connect with me. I really appreciate it. I'm interested in learning a few things about you and getting your advice on X. And so perhaps to set the stage or
Give you context on
give
myself.
you context on myself, should I start with a little bit about me?
And they'll say,
And they
yes.
will say, yes, that'd be great. Okay, because they don't know you.
Not at all.
They don't know you. And this is an important segue for you now to move into your elevator pitch. And so let's just go over it one more time here. So the small talk will look, because there's two strangers on a call, or you talk about however you got connected. How are you? Opportunity to talk about something cool, right, with you or them. And you'll say, thank you. Thank you for spending your time or taking your time out of your busy day with me. I really appreciate it. I have a few things here that I'd like to learn from you or seek your advice on, right? It's a compliment. You're admiring them. And you say, but before we get started, perhaps would it be good if I share a little bit about me? And then this is the structure of the conversation that is highly repetitive and one that I'd recommend. And so that is the intro, the part A of the intro. And we'll do the tell you your story here in a second. But that part A is critical of creating commonality, creating gratitude, respect for their time, showing that you're prepared, and then also guiding the conversation, because you are the one that has requested this. You're the one that's setting the dinner table. You're the one that's setting the stage and the agenda for the entire call.
And this is really where just do your opening salvo, getting ready for everything to go. And the next piece is really the elevator pitch is really, this is where you're going to be talking the most. This is your chance to give them all of the pertinent information that you need, or that they need, to really help you. And the elevator pitch is also a place where you can bring up things that you have in common with them, and maybe they key in on them, maybe they don't. But we're going to go over that, like what does that look like?
Yeah.
Now.
And so in your elevator pitch, this is a moment for you to to cause inspiration on their side. The concept that I like to think about is I want to lay out this buffet of options of my past, my present, and my potential future, to allow them the opportunity to find things that resonate with them, and then also could be paths of our conversation that would be interesting for them or for me. All right. And so in this moment, you want to be very concise, provide a roll-up of your past, your present, and your future that creates a full picture of you that helps to use it as a center point and guide for the rest of the conversation. So how long should this take? How long should an elevator pitch take? The standard time of these networking calls is 30 minutes. We fall inside of the hour, right? It's 30 minutes, and that's most what people can give up. It is often a stretch to ask for an hour. Meetings are most often not set in 15-minute increments. 15 minutes because it's way too short to do anything. And 45 minutes is such an outlier that it's not often utilized. And so in a 30-minute call, our recommendation is that your elevator pitch on who you are is no greater than 2 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Right? 2 minutes.
A tight 60 seconds is perfect.
If you have 2 minutes, 1 minute is better than 3. Okay? And so err on the side less than 2, because you need to get through it quickly. Provide them just enough to know about you to say, okay, I can give this guy or girl advice. And so what does this look like really? Okay? I recommend that you start early, because everyone grew up. And so what was that like? Where did you do it? What was your birth order, perhaps? I mean, I'm creating ways to have resonance with someone, that they have similar experience. Where did I grow up? How many were in my family? What was that like? What did you do after that? Maybe 2 tidbits about what that was, how you made the decision to join the military, how awesome that was, because people want to hear an inspiring story. Do not talk crap on it, because they'll think if you talk crap about the military, you'll talk crap about them or their organization. And then you want to talk about the future, right? So you create this buffet, and also you're trying to create yourself as a teammate, a potential person that has the ability, the learning agility to become who they want on their team, all right? And so those are some of the key components of your elevator pitch that's no greater than 2 minutes, and 1 minute is better than 3.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I can hit a quick example here about this and what this could look like. So I'm going to start now on 1 minute of time. And so my name is Wayne Worthington. I grew up in Iowa. I'm the oldest of 4. I was involved in a lot of things growing up on swim team and Boy Scouts. And after high school, I knew I wanted to go to the academy. I was accepted to Navy. I studied naval architecture and didn't like that as much because it was so systems oriented. I wanted more people side. So I commissioned to the Marine Corps. I had the chance to deploy a few times where I was a platoon commander of 40, second in command as an XO of 180, and then I ran operations for 1,000. Following that, I knew I wanted 3 things. I wanted a place to learn, I wanted mentorship, and another place to earn a long leash. And so I found that in executive search. I spent 3 years in executive search, identifying top talent in all the different functions of the technology industry in software, and I recognized that I wanted to be one of those people. And so today, now I serve on the leadership team of a tech startup. Boom, that was 55 seconds, right? Almost exactly a minute. And so that was the past, my family, things I was involved in, right? Then I went to college, why I went into the next piece, why I went into the next one, why I went into this. And then the last piece I could have tagged in there was, and I'm interested today to learn from you, blah, 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 blah. And that's the transition of your elevator pitch and story of who you are, what you're about, what's interesting about you, and this big buffet of your background that is so helpful in setting the stage. And they're going to go, like, I know everything about you.
Everything that matters.
Pretty much. I mean, that was the top where we could dip into, and I can go into anything and extra thing that they're going to ask about. And I could say, another piece there, I'll just stop there. It's a great way to time yourself, and you say, in the middle of your story, but you're almost there. I'm going to stop there. Is there anything that you'd like me to dive into to be more helpful? And then they will tell you the answer.
Yeah, it's great.
That they want.
It's
right?
great.
So it's a great technique, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again.
And one thing I really want to highlight, as you might have realized, that was incredibly slick and very well rehearsed. And how many times have you said that to somebody?
Probably 400 to 600 times.
Exactly. So,
maybe more.
Yeah,
maybe
that
more.
is.
But it started off terrible.
Oh.
I mean, the first time I did this, I was at a work fair, and I walked up to the guys at this USA table, which I'm sure half of everyone listening to this banks with.
Yep.
And I said something, I was like, it didn't make any sense. And the recruiter, I shit you not, just looked at me and was like, what? And then I just said, I'll be back in a minute. And I walked out. It was the first one I did. Yeah. So do this in front of the mirror. Tape yourself. And then Billy and I practiced in his kitchen where he would do it and he'd start and I'd say, stop. That sucked. Do it again. No.
Mm-hmm.
That was 5 minutes long. You're killing me. Do it again. 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 Because the amount of social credit that you can get out of a well-rehearsed and beautiful intro, I mean, it'll take you to great places.
It's fantastic. And so remember, practice makes perfect here. And just like Wayne said, you set me up with some VP of Palo Alto for my first conversation, and I had the entire elevator pitch written out on my computer, and I was just like, when it was so bad.
Yeah.
But
you get better.
You get way better at it. And the cool part is it's gonna be the same introduction you probably use when you're doing phone screenings with recruiters. And then you are on it and you are ready to go. And it is a phenomenal way to introduce yourself to recruiters for recruiter calls as well. So it's great practice for that.
It's great practice. And as you meet these folks that you're networking with, every single rep matters. Every rep matters because eventually you'll get to one that could be your future or employer or teammate. And they'll remember that moment when they met you and learned the broad story, outline of your story for the first time?
A couple of pieces that we really want to highlight for this is in your story, if you are going to highlight why you are moving from your last chapter and looking for a new opportunity in this new chapter, a couple of pieces that we really want to highlight that we've already talked about are do not bash the last thing that you did. If you're coming out of the military, don't say the military sucks, even if you think that, because you're communicating to someone, I am a complainer. And I'm not a fun person to work with because I'll tell literally anybody that something sucks.
Well, think about there's the negative forces pushing you out of the military. You don't need to, I wouldn't recommend discussing those. What you would discuss, though, are the positive influences of the civilian sector pulling you in, right? The reason I wanted to get out of the Marine Corps was because I was looking to go, pursue a career in this because I'm excited about entrepreneurism.
Yeah.
I wanted to earn a role where, you wanted to move faster than like the time and rank sort of thing, earning it, right? And I would recommend focusing on the positive sides of what's next compared to the negative sides of the past.
For me, I told no one that, oh yeah, I had a medical thing happen and now I'm getting forced out of the military. It was, I am excited to have the opportunity to pursue new careers in the private sector in order to support my wife's career as she continues through the military. And I'm saying that I'm excited for this. I'm showing that I'm a supportive spouse. And it's a lot of positivity versus, oh yeah, my horrible things happened and now I'm being forced out against my will.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
I've hired a lot of people, and like when they talk crap about the previous manager, it's a instant red flag. We don't want this person on our team.
Definitely. And so those are things that we just want you to be aware of when you are putting your story together. And really, there is no perfect way to do this. Definitely get a buddy to walk through it with them. They'll be able to tell you what sounds good, what sounds bad. For example, my personal elevator pitch, I start at college and then I go forward because I think that I can craft an inspiring and interesting narrative from that point onwards. And Wayne chose to start at birth. And so that's as you heard, his story is fantastic. I chose to go a different way. I believe that both are equally effective. And so find what works best for you.
Yeah. Make it as inspiring.
Exactly. The final piece that we're going to be talking about is you've started the conversation. You've hopefully connected at the beginning. Then you've gone straight into your elevator pitch. You've outlined really who you are to them. And then you're ending, as Wayne already said, with a couple of questions. You're outlining right away, here's the thesis of the conversation I want to have with you. These are my primary questions. And again, you made this list of questions so you know what you want to ask them. Start immediately. I would like to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. Bam. Now the floor is theirs and they're going to be talking to you. And the biggest thing that you can do right in this situation is actively listen. Take notes on things that they're talking about so that later you can reference them in the conversation and really pay just the utmost attention to what they're saying and be the best listener you can possibly be. Because this is where you're going to impress. After your elevator pitch, you're not really going to be talking. You're going to speak if you're providing clarification. You're going to speak when you're asking the next question. Ideally, that person is going to be talking most of the time. The more they talk, the better they will feel about the conversation.
And the more they'll like you.
Yeah, because you are providing them a chance to talk about themselves, which everyone loves. And they're going to feel like the more accurate information they're giving you, the more they're going to feel like they helped someone that day. And that is the best thing that you can give that person as thanks for them giving you their time. And so once you're coming to the end of this conversation, there's a couple of things that you can do. One, highly recommend that you just thank them for going over X. And that's where you use some of your notes to say, Buster, thank you so much for talking to me about the culture in your company. It was really cool that you guys that you guys have like a ping pong tournament once a month. And also, thank you so much for giving me some tips on the military programs in the company. I really appreciate that. And you're going through this list, and they're going to go, wow, this person
You're welcome.
really listened to
You're
me.
welcome. You're
And
welcome.
exactly. And you're essentially giving them the list of all the awesome information they just gave you. And it shows that you actually paid attention, which is fantastic. And then the final piece here is what we call is the ask. Because you want to
Keep it going.
Keep it going.
Keep
Exactly.
it going. You just gained a foothold, right? Like
Yep.
you just took the first building in the city.
Yeah.
You're in.
Yeah.
And like, let's go deeper. Penetration tactics. Who else can I talk to? Like, so you just got this. You have momentum. You've created a relationship. And now let's expand that relationship.
And there's a couple of different asks that kind of exist in this space. The first is going to be you're asking for information. Do you know something? The second one is can you introduce me to somebody? And then the final one is I want to talk to you again. Those are really the three categories that I would classify them in. And so, do you want to talk again is pretty easy. And it would say something along the lines of, Wayne, I really enjoyed talking to you today. If you're willing, I would love to schedule some more time with you next month to catch up and update you on my process. Is that something that you'd be willing to do?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's a great one. You can do a precise time again. Or you can just ask them like, hey, can you leave the door unlocked? Which is, Billy, would you be open to me reaching out again in the future to perhaps ask you your advice again?
Yeah.
And so, one is set the date, fantastic. And the other is, let's ask them to leave the door unlocked. And they'll probably say yes, unless it was just you had a terrible conversation.
Which hopefully you don't.
Yeah,
or at the very least, you have the social awareness to know that you bombed and
not
don't
to
ask
for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, right? Like we asked to say, can we schedule another one, right? Or perhaps you have another interview coming up. Hey, can we meet right afterwards so I can share with you about it? Perhaps you give me advice. These are very specific ones with reasons attached to the time. Or you ask to leave the door unlocked. And would you be open to me reaching out in the future if I have more questions?
The next one is going to be you're asking to further your network. And this one's a little bit more delicate. And with all of these, the one thing is you're asking for advice. You're not demanding opportunities. So in the last one, it's not, hey, talk to me again. It's, would you be open to talking to me again if you have time, if you are willing, all of that kind of verbiage. And so this next one, if you're looking for, say, Wayne works for Amazon and I want to learn more about Amazon in the business unit that he works for, I would say something along the lines of, Wayne, it's been a real pleasure getting to talk to you. Now that you know more about me and the things that I might be interested in exploring further, are there any people that you know that you would be willing to introduce me to so that I can continue to explore and find more information as I move down this path of discovery? Something like that. And so now I'm giving him an out. I'm asking him if he's willing to introduce me to people. And it's not, hey, dude, introduce me to people. It's, would you be willing to do this? And I'm also saying, you know more about me now, so you can think of the people that would best fit what we're looking for. Yeah. I'm not asking like, introduce me to the CEO, bro. It's, who do you think would best augment my discovery?
Yeah. And, sometimes I find myself getting too precise on words, but I think specific words can have influence in conversation. So Billy's is fantastic on, would you be willing to introduce me to others? That question perhaps can sometimes be with like, yes, who do you want me to introduce you to? And you might not have the answer to that. And that can sometimes be like, you're gaining this momentum, you just got the yes, and then you hit a stop because you don't know who they could ask you for. Alternatively, or another option, is there anyone in your network you would recommend that I speak to? And, would you introduce me to them? Because now you're asking again their advice. You're asking them to determine who you should talk to. And then also, would you be willing to introduce me to them? Right? So if they think of who they are, and these are just some of those like slight word games that become really critical.
They really do.
In this dance of networking and gratitude and appreciation that you give off inspire, extract, tease out the different things in individuals. But that was a fantastic point on the person and then knowledge also.
Yeah, and the final one is, so you've asked to talk to them, extend the relationship, you've asked for introductions, and then the final was you're asking for information. Generally, that means they're involved in some program that you're interested in, or they know someone, or they have access to it. And it's very simple. It's just, Wayne, thank you so much for talking to me. Would you be willing to provide me more information on Hiring Our Heroes or some program? And then this one is literally easy because very few people are going to be like, no, I'm not going to give you that information. And so that's just your final piece. You're really looking to ask for information, ask for introductions, or you're going to be asking for a continued connection with that person. And it's really up to you to feel that out. Like we said, at the beginning of my time when I was building out this professional network, I was very aggressively asking for almost exclusively introductions just to like build the network out. By the time I was done, I was a little bit more adept at saying, that was just a good conversation. I should probably leave it at that.
Yeah, there might not be, that's moving in this direction, and you recognize that it's going away from your target.
Exactly. And so sometimes there is no ask, but if there is going to be an ask, it's most likely going to be in one of those 3 categories. And those are some tips on how to effectively put that in your conversation. And it's going to feel awkward at first. So the biggest things to remember are be gracious, do not demand. And if you can do those 2 things it might sound bumbling, but at least you'll be like nice about it.
Yeah.
So
And that's what you got to resist.
yeah, exactly. At least like that's really what's got to be left out too.
Another delicate, very delicate ask is about asking for them to reference you or nominate you or refer you for an open role, right? And so this is often one that I would recommend not doing on the first call. You can feel it out, right? If they might just say like, oh, I'd be happy to recommend you for something. But most often you would end this call asking for to leave the door unlocked, right? Would you be open to meeting again sometime in the future? Do you have more knowledge I could learn or other people to meet? And then you'd follow up with an email, and we'll get into that. But when it comes to asking for the reference or recommendation, we recommend that you often do that via email in a follow-up or a second call where you go back again, you're providing value, you're sharing with them how much and how impactful their information was. And then, also, Billy, in this new call, the second call, I found this specific role. Would you be willing to recommend me or refer me for this opportunity? And that's the delicacy around asking for a job inside of your network. But that's what it builds for. We're building this great crescendo of the network to identify opportunities that match you and match your needs and have that reference or the referral, because those are the effective ways in and a special access point when it comes to finding an opportunity.